Today is the day of perhaps one of the most interesting releases on D&D Beyond. We have a brand new class, and not one from an existing thing, a brand new class in general. We have the Kindred class, the vampire one from Vampire the Masquerade, courtesy of Ghostfire Games, who make some of my favourite third-party stuff. The Monster Hunter is a wonderful bit of design, and I have high hopes that this will maintain the high level of polish and quality and a degree of streamlining that's essential to making sure that everybody can understand it. You can view that as foreshadowing if you would like to. Hello, my name is Jason, and this is the Dungeon Himbo, my YouTube channel where I talk about all sorts of things, but today I'm doing a review. I normally do builds and other stuff, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, please give a subscribe and maybe hop into the Discord as well, which is in the description. But that is enough ado. Let us get into the meat, bones, and blood of it all, shall we? Today I'm going to be focusing on the Kindred class itself, rather than all the other stuff, although we will need to talk about some feats as well. There's a lot to wrap your head around here, so I will be skipping some of the lore as well. The Kindred is basically the Vampire the Masquerade. The subclasses are not subclasses as such, as they are versions of vampires from within that world. Let's talk about it, shall we? So your primary ability is Charisma. You have a D10 hit point die, which is solid. You have Con and Charisma saves, making this potentially a really good dip for Bard, weirdly. You get to choose 2 from Athletics, Deception, History, Intimidation, Perception, Persuasion, Survival, or Stealth. You get weapon proficiencies with simple weapons in general, and then martial weapons that are light. You get armor training with light armor and the breastplate, which is, I think, the most specific thing I've seen on a 5.5e class. And then you start with some stuff. I'm never that interested in that. It states, I'm going to read some of these lore bits and design notes, I think, more than anything else. In Vampire the Masquerade, in the collective world of darkness setting, the vast majority of Kindred are human. While there may be the occasional plot-based variation, all Kindred characters are made using the human species. In 5th edition games, however, since Kindred is a class, other species can be Kindred if GMs want to create vampiric options in their campaigns. This is the table. There are a few things to note. One is the absolute heft of the level 1 features you're getting here, because there's a lot to go into. You're also getting blood points and feed dice. So 2 unique mechanics for this class, along with so actually it's not, because as you see at level 2, you also get Kindred feats, which are specific feats you can take if you are a Kindred to further customize your class. You can view them as being akin to an agent for a warlock, for example. Let's get into it all, shall we? So let's cover the core class first, and then we'll talk about the subclasses. Level 1, you get feed. This is the most important thing about the class, because it's how you power nearly everything else. As an action, you can feed on another creature within 5 feet of yourself if the target is willing, charmed by you, or has the incapacitated, grappled, paralyzed, restrained, stunned, or unconscious condition. You can feed only once per turn, because it's an action. But it's saying that because if you've got haste or some other way of giving yourself extra actions, you can't do it more than once. When you feed, you roll your feed dice plus your con modifier, so it's an attack of sorts. The creature takes necrotic damage equal to the roll's total. The damage only reduces the hit point maximum by an amount equal to the roll's total, so you don't add your con for that, just the dice rolled, but you do actually reduce the hit point maximum, which is quite potent. And the number of feed dice goes up as you go. Along with that, if you roll a 6 on a feed die, you regain 1 expended blood point. If a creature's hit point maximum is reduced to 0, you can regain 1 expended blood point as well. I assume that means when you are feeding, which means that you potentially gain 2, well, up to 3, basically, at level 1, because you have 2d6. That was a lot already, and we're really not anyway through it. If you feed on a willing creature or a charmed creature, a creature charmed by you, it can spend 1 hit point die. If it does, it rolls the hit point die and reduces its hit point maximum by the amount rolled. You can regain 1 expended blood point. Feeding this way doesn't end the charmed condition. My assumption is this replaces the normal damage, otherwise they're taking extra damage for some reason. Yeah, that's my assumption. Hit die deficit. If a creature has no remaining hit point dice, the creature takes necrotic damage equal to a roll of your feed dice, plus your con mod, and the creature's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the roll's total. So yes, the 2 interact and cancel each other out. So if a creature is charmed, they don't take as much damage, and you can theoretically feed on them more, although there are rules regarding the size of creatures. Speaking of which, maximum successful feedings. A creature can provide a number of blood points based on its size. Small is 1, medium is 3, large is 5, huge is 7, and gargantuan provides 10. The creature regains all lost blood points when it finishes a long rest. This is in case you are feeding on a companion, maybe a tamed creature, creature or one of your party members. You can feed on any creature with blood or life-giving fluid, aberrations, beasts, dragons, blah 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 blah. Constructs, elementals, oozes, and plants don't usually have blood, but figure out with your DM. There's also a blood bond, a mysterious. This is an optional thing. I feel like if you mysterious power in the blood of kindred causes creatures to become blood bound to the creature when they drink from the same kindred at least 3 times within 1 year. At least 1 long rest occurs between each of the 3 drinks. And while bound to a kindred, a creature is considered charmed by that kindred and has advantage on saving throws to avoid being charmed or frightened by other creatures. This is in addition to the effects from the Kindred Vitae consumable, which is a new equipment thing. A blood bond can be suppressed by 1 minute if the creature succeeds on a DC 25 charisma saving throw. The bond is only permanently removed if the creature doesn't drink from the kindred again, or if the kindred in question is killed. I don't know why people are drinking from kindreds. Doesn't really say, unless I'm completely missing the point of something about that. Yeah, I think it's in case you're drinking from other kindred, maybe, or if there's another kindred in the campaign. Also at level 1, that was one of the 4 features. Also at level 1, you get the Beast. As a bonus action, you can use this beast's predatory instincts, the beast within you, to sharpen your senses and abilities. Until the start of your next turn, you have advantage on D20 tests you make. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain all uses on a short or long rest. If, during that state, a D20 test benefiting from your beast feature fails, you go into a bloodlusted, hunger-driven state. The state ends after a minute or after you have successfully used your feed feature, whichever comes first. While bloodlusted, you regard the creature nearest to you that you can see or hear and that you can feed on as your prey. If there are multiple creatures, you choose one at random. Once on each of your turns, you must move as closely as you can to the enemy and take the attack action to make an unarmed strike to grapple them. If you're unable to get the grapple, your turn ends after you've used up all your available movement. If a creature dies and can no longer be seen or heard, the next nearest creature is your target. If the target is in range and has the grapple condition at the start of your turn, you have to feed on it. So, this is risky, but it's also optional. You don't have to use the Beast feature. If you do, you get advantage on all your D20 tests, which is pretty solid, which means you're less likely to fail, but it is worth noting that it comes with a pretty hefty downside. You also get blood potency at level 1. You are fueled by blood represented by your blood points. Your kindred level determines the number of points you have, as shown in the blood points column, which we had a brief look at earlier. You can expend blood points in the following ways. As a bonus action, you can expend 1 blood point to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your kindred level. If you fail a D20 test that is affected by your beast feature, you can expend 1 blood point to ignore the effects of hunger, so you don't have to go into your rage thing. And Vitae powers, there are kindred feats and subclass features fueled by expending blood points. I'm going to say blood a lot during this. So, strap in. The 4th feature you get at level 1 is called Kindred Biology. I don't actually know that this is a lot of features. I'm trying to think of other classes off the top of my head that might have the same number, and that it's just simpler because we're used to it, And I do think that's worth noting with third-party classes. That being said, I think it's pretty clear to see this thing is rather complicated. You have benefits and drawbacks because of your biology. You don't regain blood points when you finished a short or long rest, it's just by eating people. To gain the benefits of a long rest, you must have at least 1 blood point in your pool, or you only gain the benefits of a short rest. So you have to keep 1 in your pool. As a reminder, you can only have 1 in your pool to begin with, so you do have to be very wary of that. You have a dark vision of a range of 60 feet, that's very tasty. You can't eat or drink food. If you consume more than a nibble or a sip, you become poisoned, which lasts until you throw up, basically. Instead, you have to consume a number of blood points per day equal to the number of pounds of food a creature your size would normally require. 1 for small and medium creatures, so 1 blood point per day. You can expend 1 blood point to automatically succeed on the DC 10 Constitution saving throw to avoid gaining 1 level of exhaustion from malnutrition. Expending blood points to activate your kindred features or kindred feats does not count towards the blood points you need to expend for sustenance, so you do need to keep in mind that you need to keep blood points not only to long rest, but also to eat generally. Sunlight vulnerability. You take 5 radiant damage in the start if you start your turn in sunlight. Stick to the shadows. You also get supernatural spellcasting. Charisma is your spellcasting ability for spells from the subclass, and kindred feats. Your spells require no verbal or somatic components, and they require no material components unless they are consumed by the spell or have a specific cost. Taking damage also cannot break your concentration. That sounds really broken. The list of spells is super specific here, so fear not. Torpor. If your exhaustion is 6, You aren't killed, instead you drop to 1 hit point and become unconscious, and can't remove the condition until you have expended a number of blood points equal to your proficiency bonus over any length of time. Another creature can feed you while you're unconscious to recover blood points, but the details of how that occurs is left for you and the DM to determine. You are undead in addition to your normal creature type, and you don't age. You also automatically succeed on death saving throws, and being reduced to 0 hit points by fire or radiant damage, or being beheaded kills you outright, so fireballs are very dangerous, and so is being in the sun. You have vulnerability to fire and radiant damage, so fireballs are really dangerous, and also the 5 damage from earlier is 10 damage by default. And when you are attacked by a wooden weapon that deals piercing damage, and you are reduced to 0 hit points, or the attack roll is a critical hit, you are staked through the heart and become paralyzed until the weapon is removed. Those are some pretty meaty downsides, but there are also some pretty meaty upsides. And I think, let's talk about the level 1 stuff, because that's most of what you're getting with this class, right? Blood points feeding the vibes. This is quite complicated and requires a fair amount of bookkeeping from both the player and the DM, and quite possibly other party members as well. You need to keep track of which creatures you fed on, how often you've been feeding on them. If they fed on you, or if you've given them blood for some reason, then you could potentially bond with them. It's a whole thing. So yeah, keep that in mind. This is not a class for the faint-hearted, nor for the newer player, unfortunately. Level 2, you get your first Kindred feat. You get 1 at level 2, 1 at level 7, 1 at 10, 13, and 17. This is our first breakaway. Let's talk about the Kindred feats. I'm going to save the Origin feats for a different video, because I want to. I want to make 2 videos from this. I like doing it for these books, and this thing doesn't just have player-facing options, so I do want to talk about those. Let's talk about the Kindred feats, though. These all require you to be the Kindred class, so these are not general feats. These are, like I said, invocations. First up is Alacrity. This is a level 2 or above 1. As a bonus action, you can expend 1 blood point to gain an additional action. The action can only be used to take the attack action, 1 attack only, or the disengage action, and your speed increases by 10 feet and you have advantage on initiative rolls. That's pretty strong, but again, it's a class feature basically, so it isn't as strong as it seems. These would be broken if you were taking them as feats in general, but weirdly feel fine when you compare it to other Warlock invocations. Cloak of Shadows, also level 2 or above. You're adept at supernaturally masking your presence. You gain the following benefits. As a bonus action, you can give yourself advantage on your next stealth check on the current turn, and as a magic action, you can just gain the invisible condition until the end of your turn. You can do the magic action a number of times equal to your PB, and you regain all uses in a long rest. That's pretty solid. I don't know if I should just do... I think I'm just going to do all of them. Do we just do all of them? I think we just do all of them. Or I come back at the various levels and talk about it. Let's just go through them all. This is the Kindred feat section now. F-E-A-T. Don't be weird. Convincing Thoughts is a level 7 or above 1. You gain the following benefits. You gain a boost to your charisma score. Keep in mind that this is a Kindred feat, which means that you're getting a lot of stats, but there's a lot of stats involved in the subclass itself. You can cast Charm Person without expending a spell slot. Your number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, or all uses come back on a long rest. And when a spell or effect that causes the charm condition to end, the target doesn't know it was charmed by you, which is nice. Daywalker. This doesn't have a level requirement, rather strangely. When you take damage from sunlight, reduce the damage by 2. That would reduce it by 2 based on... It depends whether it impacts the original damage or the vulnerability. I think it would just impact the vulnerability, which feels a bit naff. But hey, as a bonus action, you can expend 1 blood point to remove your vulnerability to radiant damage for a minute. And when you start a long rest, you can make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw. If you succeed, you count as having at least 1 blood point for that long rest. This seems really, really good, and is one that I think a lot of people will take just for the fact that it simplifies things a little bit. Discipline Acquisition has options within the options. It gains you... So this is level 4 or above, and this gives you one of any of these options. Proficiency in Animal Handling and Nature. If you have proficiency, you get expertise. Then the same again with Investigation and Perception, the same again with Deception and Intimidation, Sleight of Hand and Stealth, Performance and Persuasion. You can also, you gain an extra reaction, which you can use with any of your existing reactions. That's pretty fantastic. Damage dealt to you except for your fire and radiant damage is reduced by an amount equal to your proficiency bonus. That's pretty cool. You can see in dim light and darkness within 90 feet of yourself whether it's magical or non-magical. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon as part as an attack on your turn, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to proficiency bonus. When you hit with an unarmed strike, you deal 1d6 slashing damage extra, and you can take this feat multiple times, but you have to choose a different discipline each time. So this is cool. I don't know that I would ever take the proficiency skill things, or to be perfectly honest, as much as I love expertise, Although if you're going for a skill monkey vampire, this is a fantastic way to get a bunch of expertise. But they're all pretty nifty. Level 2 or above, Feral Whispers is next. As a magic action, you can spend a blood point to summon a number of large or smaller beasts, such as a rat or wolf, equal to a charisma modifier. The total challenge rating for the summoned beasts can't exceed your proficiency bonus. They arrive at your location in 1d4 plus 1 rounds, and they're charmed by you for a minute after it arrives. In combat, it shares your initiative count but takes its turns immediately after you and obeys your verbal commands, no action required. If you don't issue any, it takes the dodge action and uses its movement to avoid danger. You can do that as many times as you want, but again, it's 1d4 plus 1 rounds, so it may never be relevant unless you're doing it just as combat's about to kick off. And you can get speak with animals, but only as a ritual. Forceful Presence. As a bonus action, you can give yourself advantage on charisma, intimidation, performance, and persuasion checks for 10 minutes. You can do this a number of times equal to your PB per long rest. And as a bonus action, make an intimidation check and choose a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. The target must make a wisdom saving throw with a result equal to your intimidation check. On a fail check, they become frightened for a minute. They can repeat the save at the end of their turn. Creature with intelligence 3 or over automatically succeeds. And again, that is PB times per long rest. You get both of those, so this is good if you're trying to be a charming dude. Level 8 or above is Greater Discipline Acquisition. There's so many of these. I don't normally cover all these, but I think they're really important to the class, so I have to. Bear with me. Gain one of the following benefits for which you also already possess the matching discipline from Discipline Acquisition. So you have to have the first version of this to get the second version of this. Animalism gives you the ability to speak with animals and Animal Messenger, but only as rituals. You can also cast the Animal Friendship spell without a spell slot, a number of times equal to PB per long rest. Or Specs is as a bonus action. You can spend a blood point to gain advantage on intelligence and wisdom checks and saving throws for a minute. That's pretty cool. Celerity is as a bonus action or as a reaction when you're hit by an attack roll. You can expend a blood point to double your speed and gain a +3 AC bonus until the start of your next turn. Dominate is Charm Person and Suggestion, number of times equal to your PB bonus. Cool. Fortitude is when you have to make a con save that allows you to take half damage. Okay, Fortitude is evasion, but for Constitution. So that's nice. Obfuscate is while entirely in darkness, you are invisible, and any creature that relies on dark vision to see you in that darkness. I mean, you're not invisible to creatures that don't rely on it. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but it's weird phrasing. Oblivion, you expend a blood point to cast Darkness spell. When you cast the spell in this way, you modify it so it doesn't require concentration. That's pretty cool. Potence, as a bonus action, you can spend 2 blood points to empower your strikes for 1 minute. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon or an unarmed strike, they take an extra 1d10 force damage. In addition, you deal double damage to objects and structures. Presence is 3 blood points to cast Fear. You can modify it so it no longer has concentration and creatures have disadvantage against it. Protean, as a bonus action, you expend 2 blood points to deal an extra 2d6 slashing damage to a target you hit with an unarmed strike for 1 minute. And you can repeat this one too, but you need not only to take the feat again, but to have the right one from the original Discipline Acquisition as well. Level 7 or above is Hardened Skin. Your con goes up by 1, up to a maximum of 20, and you select bludgeoning or slashing damage, and you have resistance to the chosen damage type. Heightened Senses is level 2. You get advantage on insight and perception checks, and you have a blind sight with 30 feet, and can cast the See Invisibility spell a number of times equal to your PB per long rest. The Kiss is not a one with a level requirement. When you feed, you can choose to roll d4s instead of d6s for your feed dice. When you do so, you regain 1 blood point on a roll of a d4, 4 instead of a d4, and the creature is charmed by you. The charm condition lasts until the end of your next turn. That one's very strong. It improves your chance of getting blood points quite dramatically, so that's good. Lethal Body is 4 or above. You deal an extra 1d8 extra damage when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike. The extra damage is the same damage type dealt by the strike, and creatures have disadvantage on trying to escape your grapple. I feel like you could make an absolutely absurdly good unarmed strike character with this. You don't get flurry of blows, but you're doing a lot of damage. Loyal Servant is 7+. Companion, a loyal beast or humanoid is bloodbound to you. Choose a beast or humanoid stat block that has a challenge rating of up to half your proficiency bonus. Okay, your Loyal Servant gets a Kindred feat of your choice, and it counts as a level 2 Kindred for the purpose of selecting a Kindred feat, and it can expend a hit point die in place of a blood point die for the purpose of its feat. Cool. Not blood point die, just blood point. And if the servant is killed or otherwise leaves, you can choose a new loyal subject servant after 30 days. That one's a hard sell, man. Mind Tricks, level 2 or above. You can cast Command without expending a spell slot, a number of times equal to your PB, or gain things back on a long rest, and you get a special command, which is forget. The target has a hazy and unsure recollection of the last 5 minutes. It's very fitting. The flavor's on point. I'm not denying that. Self-control is level 2 or above. Your wisdom goes up by 1. Up to a maximum of 20. When you would be affected by the hunger of your beast feature, you can take a reaction to end the effect immediately. You can do this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. You'll gain all uses in a long rest. Now, this is a charisma class, so your wisdom modifier is probably not going to be great, but there are lots of ways to gain stats, not only from the kindred feats, but your standard feats, and also the capstone, which we'll get to later, I promise. Superior discipline acquisition. Once again, you need to match. I am skipping that one. They're pretty cool. You can cast black tentacles, invisibility, detect magic, clairvoyance, so on and so forth. Lots of good stuff, right? There's also Supreme Discipline Acquisition, which is the level 16 version. So Superior is 12, Supreme is 16. Cool. I'm not reading all that, bro. You can't make me. Touch of Darkness is level 2 or above. We're nearly there. You can see normally in dim light and darkness, magical and non-magical, within 120 feet of yourself, and you get advantage on stealth checks. And Vitae Concentration is 4 or above. You get a con boost of 1, and your blood point maximum increases by your con modifier. There's also an epic boon just for this, but we talk about that in Thursday's video. Keep it cool, you know? So anyway, those are the kindred feats that you get at 2, 7, 10, 13, and 17. That is 5 of them. They're pretty cool. That was a lot. My assumption is you could also take kindred feat as a normal feat, because the only qualifier is that you have to be kindred, right? So you basically just get, so you just have to be a kindred, and then you can take those. So that's nice. At level 3, you get a subclass, which is cool. These are usually, the subclasses represent bloodlines, but in D&D, it's your subclass. So write that into your backstory. Level 4, 8, 12, and 16 are your ability score improvements, as you would expect. Level 5, you get Bestial Fury. Once per turn, when you hit a target with a melee weapon or unarmed strike, you can expend a use of your beast feature to roll the weapon's damage die twice, and use either roll against the target. If this damage reduces it to 0 hit points, you can't choose to leave the creature at 0 hit points as per the knocking out creature rule. That's really bad. I'm gonna be real with you. That's a weird feature. The better feature as part of that, weirdly, is a Bestial Flurry. While affected by your beast feature, you can attack twice instead of once while you take the attack action on your turn. Level 5, you also get Improved Feed, which allows you to feed as a bonus action instead of a main action. And if a creature is grappled by you, it has disadvantage on its checks to escape the grapple. Level 10 feels like a wild jump, but it's because you get kindred feats and normal feats in between that time, as well as subclass stuff. So you're always getting stuff. Level 10, you get advantage on saves to avoid or end the charm condition and against effects that turn undead. Level 14 is whenever you roll a die for your feed feature, you can re-roll the die, and must use the new roll. This makes it very easy to get blood points, especially if you've taken the D4 kindred feat. Level 19 is an epic boon, and level 20 is the capstone, which is an ancient awakening. This allows you to pick 4 ability scores and improve each of them by 2, up to a maximum of 25. If a kindred subclass feature allows for an ability score to go beyond 25, it can go up to that instead. So yes, and then there's some flavor. The class is absurdly complicated at levels 1 through 2 somehow, and then feels like it's a lot simpler from then on, but it's only because the early level features tell you to take things later on, right? There's a lot going on here. There is a mass of customization, and we haven't even talked about the subclasses yet, which we will do, and there are 6 of them, so there are plenty of options there as well. My opinion of it, just from the overview, is that I love the vibe of what it's doing. I really like the pros and cons as well. We'll get more cons and more pros as we go through the subclasses, but I do think that the extra accounting that it requires is going to put people off. I think there are long-term D&D players who will look at the sheer volume of stuff you've got to kind of do and the way it plays and how odd it is compared to standard classes and probably be a little scared off. I don't know necessarily that it's too complicated in general. I don't think that it is. There's this need to write third-party stuff off as being too complicated when you're given all of it at once, but you have to keep in mind that if you were playing this in a campaign 1 through 20, you'd be getting the features one at a time, apart from level 1 where you get 4. But a lot of those are just, like I said, it's the same things you would get with spellcasting as well as proficiencies and stuff. It feels very complicated. I don't know that it would over the course of a campaign. So keep that in mind. So let's go for the subclasses. First up is the Brew. I feel like I was correct the first time. This is a clan of freethinkers and revolutionaries who thrive on their own liberty and fight against oppression and stagnation. They find a power in themselves that is reflected as strength, speed, and a force of personality that makes them formidable in various conflicts they often find themselves in. Your Bane, each subclass has this. If you fail a D20 test that is affected by your beast feature and choose to expend blood points to ignore the hunger, you must expend a number of blood points equal to your proficiency bonus to ignore the effects instead of 1. So it's harder to get over the being hungry bit. Level 3, you also get Fighting Fury. You can expend 1 blood point to get advantage on the first attack roll you make with a melee weapon or unarmed strike on your turn. So this doesn't affect opportunity attacks. You also get the ability to dash and dodge as a bonus action. And you get proficiency with all martial weapons, not just the light ones. And you get 2 weapon mastery properties as well. So this is clearly the weapons one, basically. So that's good. Level 6, you get Fearsome. You bear your fangs. Your eyes flash with predatory hunger and you let out a hiss that strikes terror in the hearts of others. That was all flavor. You can expend 1 blood point to cast the Fear spell, and you get advantage on intimidation checks. Level 9, you get Fleetness. You can expend 3 points to cast the Haste spell on yourself, but you don't get incapacitated and your speed isn't reduced to 0 when it ends. That's very strong. Haste is very strong. Burning Wrath. At level 11, as a bonus action, you can expend 2 blood points to empower your unarmed strikes for 1 minute or until you fail to make an attack roll against an enemy on your turn, whichever comes first. You can deal an extra 2d8 necrotic damage to a target you hit with an unarmed strike. Level 15 is Rouse Emotions. You can cast the Charm Person spell as if it were a level 6 spell slot, and creatures have a disadvantage on the saving throw. These all cost 3 blood points to do, by the way. You can cast Confusion. A creature that fails its saving throw automatically rolls 7 to 8 to determine its behavior for the turn, and you can cast Fear. When you cast it in this way, it doesn't require concentration, and creatures have disadvantage on the saving throw. They then get Might. I'm assuming that's French. I apologize to Trek, Derriere, and Courtports and Curiosities specifically for my pronunciation there. I'm sorry. At level 18, you get a strength boost of 4 up to a maximum of 30. And when you hit a target with an attack roll using a melee weapon or an unarmed strike, your melee weapon or unarmed strike deals 2 extra dice of its damage. That is very strong. This thing hits like a truck, and you get to make creatures scared of you as well. Very cool. Very strong. Gangrel. The Gangrel have made peace with their beast long ago, choosing to harness the wild power it promises and wield it rather than try to stifle it. They are attuned to its feral nature, embodying the predator. Your Bane. If you're affected by the hunger of your beast feature, you have disadvantage on deception and persuasion checks until you finish a long rest. Good to know. That one's pretty minor compared to the first one, where it's just incredibly hard to stop eating people. Your Gifts of the Beast. You get a dark vision range of 240 feet, and as a bonus action, you can expend a blood point to grow claws for a minute. Your unarmed strikes then do 2d6 slashing damage and use your dex modifier instead of your strength modifier. So this is more dex focused than the first one. Level 6, you get Feral Spirit. You get Beast Mind. When you look in the eyes of a beast within 30 feet of yourself, you can speak to it telepathically and can use the influence action skill options with it. You can also cast Animal Friendship without a spell slot. You can cast it at a level as if you had used a spell slot level equal to your proficiency bonus. That's some words in a sentence. And when you're affected by the hunger of your beast feature, you deal an extra 1d6 slashing damage when you hit with an unarmed strike, and also count as 1 size larger when determining what you can grapple. So you're better at eating stuff. Level 9 is Gifts of Survival. Whenever you take damage except for Raya and Radiant, you can take a reaction to reduce the damage taken by your proficiency bonus plus your con modifier, which is fine. And as a magic action, you can spend 1 blood point to cast Meld into Stone, except the surface must be dirt, sand, or clay instead of stone. Additionally, while the spell is active, you gain Tremor Sense with a range of 60 feet. The spell lasts until you end it, or when you finish a long rest. So you can just sleep in stone, which is kind of cool. Honestly, I'm here for it. That's a fun thing to be able to do. At level 9, you get Mastery. As a magic action, you can spend a number of blood points to shapeshift into a beast form applicable to this feature. See known forms below. You stay in that form for a number of hours equal to half your Kindred level, or until you use Corporeal Mastery again, have the incapacitated condition, or die. You can also leave the form early as a bonus action. If you spend 2 blood points, you can turn into a bat, cat, rat, raven, or wolf. And if you expend 4 points to shapeshift, you can go turn into a dire wolf, giant bat, giant rat, or panther. Very specific, but obviously it has to be, because you also get temp health equal to your Kindred level when you assume the form, and then it's standard wild shape stuff. So you keep your hit point die, you keep your mental stats and class features and languages and feats. So yeah. What CR are these creatures? CR 1, CR 1/4, 1/8, 1/4. So that's not a combat thing, not really. You're not going to be doing combat with that, but it's nice to be able to turn into one, right? Theoretically, you could turn into a direwolf and someone could drive you, and it's a fun way to get around. Yeah, that's large. Giant bat large as well. It is. You can fly around with someone on your back. That's cool. Level 15, you get Command the Beast. You cast the Dominate spell as its level 7 version without expanding spell slot. and you can modify it so it doesn't require concentration. Once you cast a spell with this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So it would just be as an action, right? It doesn't actually say, am I being dense? Level 15, command the beast, allowing your beast to overwhelm theirs. Yeah, it just says you can cast it. Okay, I assume it's a magic action. And rouse, when a kindred you can see within 30 feet of you is about to make a d20 test, you can take a reaction and expend 1 blood point to force that creature to use its beast feature on that d20 test. If the kindred has no remaining uses, the effect automatically fails. Vampire the Masquerade is a little less cooperative than D&D generally is, and I think it's worth keeping in mind as that does inform some of the features here. And then the final feature is Protean Rewards. Your body can perform greater wonders as a magic action. You can double your Gift of Survival feature's damage reduction for a minute, and you can expend 2 blood points to cast the Gaseous Form spell on yourself. When you cast this spell in this way, you can modify it so it doesn't require concentration. I think this is notably weaker than the Bruja. That's it. That's kind of my thoughts on it. It's cool, but I think it's a fair bit weaker than the Bruja, unless you really like animals. La Sombra. Kindred are creatures of darkness, but none so much as the La Sombra. They are masters infused with the inky abyss from which they draw their power, turning shadows into an extension of themselves. They're edgy emos. I respect it. Your bane is you do not tolerate failure, especially your own. When you roll a 1 on a d20 test, you have advantage on the next d20 test you make within 1 minute. Taste of Oblivion at level 3. You can see normally in dim light and darkness, both magical and non-magical, within 120 feet of yourself, and you have advantage on stealth checks, and you can take the hide action as a bonus action. This is the Stealthy Ball. Shadow Mastery at level 6. You can expend 2 points to cast the Black Tentacles spell. When you cast the spell this way, the tentacles deal 1d6 bludgeoning and 2d6 cold damage instead of 3d6 bludgeoning. And you can expend 1 blood point to cast the Darkness spell. Level 9 is Force of Will. You can expend 1 blood point to cast Suggestion. And as a magic action, you can also expend 1 blood point to mentally lull a creature within 15 feet of yourself to sleep. Creature has to make a wisdom save or gain the unconscious condition for 10 minutes. The effect ends on a target if it takes damage or within someone wakes it up. Creatures that don't sleep, such as elves or have immunity to the exhaustion condition, automatically succeed on saves against this effect. Being able to put someone to sleep is good. Suggestion is good. Level 11 is Abyssal Strength. As a bonus action, you can spend 2 blood points to increase your strength score by an amount equal to your proficiency bonus for 1 minute. That's incredibly nifty. There is no limit to that, which means that if you have a strength score of 20, you can go up to 26, basically, at that level. So at high levels. That's pretty cool. Very novel. Crush Weakness, which is weird because we were being stealthy before, right? I think the aim is to balance out your strength and dexterity, but if you just forgo the charisma in favor of strength and dexterity, you're going to have a good time. Level 15 is Crush Weakness. When a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself fails an ability check or saving throw, you can take a reaction and expend 2 blood points to do 4d8 psychic damage to the creature. And if a creature within 10 feet of yourself misses an attack roll, you can take a reaction and expend 2 blood points to deal 2d8 bludgeoning and 2d8 cold damage to it. I mean, it's good from just using your reaction standpoint, and at level 15 you do have a lot of blood points, so yeah, I think that's interesting enough. Tenebrous Form. Tenebrous? At level 18, as a magic action you can expend 5 blood points to assume this form for a minute. While in this form you get a +4 bonus to your AC, 4d10 temp health. You can expend 1 blood point to increase the form by 1 minute, which is very good value. You get advantage on strength and constitution saving checks and throws. You expend 1 blood point to cast the Misty Step spell, but it has to be to a place of dim light or darkness, and when you make an unarmed strike, your reach is 5 feet greater than normal, and you can deal an extra 2d10 cold damage to a target you hit with an unarmed strike, and you can grapple the creature if it's huge or smaller. That's really good. That one seems a lot better than the Gangrel. I feel like the Gangrel really got the short stick for some reason. Undergo a tragic transformation upon becoming Kindred. The visage is warped to represent the beast inside, making them into a terror who forges connections only with vermin and monsters. They must overcome this adversity with their gifts, lest they become the monsters they resemble. Your bane is if someone sees you, you get disadvantage in charisma checks when interacting with them if they're not undead, but only if they see your actual face. The good news is you get the ability to cast the Disguise Self spell without expending a spell slot as many times as you want. You can also cast the Invisibility spell without expending a spell slot a number of times equal to your PB on short or long rest, so that's pretty cool. You then have Monstrous Gifts at level 6, and we have another list of options here. You can take 2 of the following. Animalist allows you to cast Animal Friendship, Animal Messenger, and Speak with Animals, each without a spell slot once per short or long rest. Ears of the Bat gives you blind sight of 60 feet. That's pretty good. Feral Talons gives you a climb speed equal to your speed, and when you hit with an unarmed strike and deal damage, you can deal slashing damage equal to 1d8 plus your strength modifier instead of the normal damage of an unarmed strike. Cool. A good point. You don't get a default boost to your unarmed strike damage. You have to go down that path, I think, right? Yeah. Leathery Hide. Damage dealt to you except for fire and radiant is reduced by an amount equal to your constitution modifier, Patagia. If you aren't incapacitated or wearing heavy armor, you can extend your skin to glide. When you fall, you move up to 5 feet horizontally for every 1 foot you descend. And when you would take damage from a fall, you can take a reaction to reduce that damage to 0. And then the Terror. As a magic action, you can reveal your monstrous nature to up to 3 creatures you can see within 30 feet of yourself. Each target must make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened and for 1 minute or until you deal damage to it. Goodness, I keep getting ahead of myself. There's just so many words. I like options. There's options within options here. We've got options within other options. So there are options. Inhuman Strength, you just get a strength boost of 2 here. And as a bonus action, you can expend 3 blood points to empower your strikes for 1 minute. When you hit with a melee weapon or an unarmed strike, the target takes an extra 1d10 force damage. The Concealing at level 11 has a lot of... I'm going to summarize this because I don't want to read all of that out loud. As a magic action, you can expend 3 blood points to touch something, an object specifically, and remove it from sight or memory. The object must be no larger than 120 feet, and it becomes invisible. Creatures of your choice within 120 feet of you must make a wisdom save, or they can't see it anymore, unless it's completely ridiculous, in which case they write it off as being a bad dream. So there you go. It does last until you use it again, which is pretty cool if you're trying to hide, I don't know, your dirty clothes, maybe? That seems useful. A Remove Curse or Greater Restoration cast on a target can restore its true memories. You also, whenever you cast the invisibility spell, which you can do because of level 3, you can expend 6 blood points to have it target additional creatures you can see within 30 feet of you. The number of blood points expended in this way equals the number of creatures affected by this feature. You also get Greater Monstrous Gifts at level 15. You can choose one benefit from the following list. You can spend 2 points to cast Blight or Insect Plague. When you feed, you can roll an additional feed dice. In addition, you can use your jaws to make unarmed strikes. When you hit with unarmed strikes and deal damage, you deal piercing damage equal to 2d6 plus your strength mod instead of the normal damage for unarmed strikes. It's good if you want to be biting people, I guess. Your blind sight increases to 90 feet, and you can also see within dim light and darkness within 120 feet of yourself. I misread that. Yep, that's cool. You can expend 2 blood points to cast greater invisibility. In addition, you have advantage on stealth checks. In response to taking damage, you can take your reaction and expend a blood point to gain resistance for 1 minute to 2 damage types other than fire, psychic, or radiant, including against the triggering damage. And finally, when you aren't wearing heavy armor, your speed increases by 10 and you gain a fly speed equal to your speed. And then level 18 is What Goes Bump in the Night. You gain the following benefits. As a magic action, you can expend 3 blood points to summon 1d4 plus 1 swarms of bats, swarms of insects, or swarms of rats. These arrive at the end of your next turn and stay under your control for an ally. You don't need to take an action to command them. You can do it once per short or long rest. And you gain the ability to cast greater invisibility on yourself without expending a spell slot a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all uses on a short or long rest. So this one feels a little bit messy. There's a very much a vibe of hiding yourself and being good at hiding yourself, but you also get some pretty hefty boosts to your unarmed damage and defenses as well, potentially. So it's a good one if you want to customize what you're already doing in amongst all the other customizations, basically. Toreador, I'm assuming that's how that's pronounced, are steeped in art and beauty. They use their superhuman senses to experience aspects of the world no one else can. They feel everything deeply and with a glance or a few words can instill similar feelings in others. If there is ore to be found, they can find it. Is this the Twilight vampire vibe? The Bane here is when you roll a 9 or lower on a d20 test for an intelligence, for an investigation or perception check, you see nothing of immediate beauty and gain the restrained condition. At the end of each of your turns, you can make a DC 10 wisdom saving throw, ending the condition on a success. That's very silly. You also get an artist's soul at level 3. You get advantage on investigation and perception checks, in addition to a boost to your dark vision up to 120 feet. So you get advantage on these checks, so failing that is very unlikely for your Bane. And then you gain proficiency in 2 skills and 1 tool of your choice. If you already have proficiency, you can gain expertise in it instead. So you can get 2 expertises there, potentially. Level 6 is Depth of Feelings. As a magic action, you can expend 2 blood points to see a creature's aura for a minute. You can ask the GM up to 2 questions that can be answered with yes or no. You must ask your questions before the effect ends, and you receive a correct answer for each question. The following are examples. Is the creature's type X? Can the creature cast spells? Is it hostile towards me? Does the creature believe what you're saying? That's pretty interesting. The GM has final say as to whether the question be answered, but it has to be truthful if they are answering. And you can also expend 1 blood point to cast Calm Emotions, Charm Monster, or Charm Person. Level 9 is Live Fast and Be a Good-Looking Corpse. Just a great name. You get a Dex boost of 2, and as a bonus action, you can expend 1 blood point to gain an additional action on each of your turns, which can only be used to attack just once, dash, disengage, hide, or utilize, and that effect lasts for a number of turns equal to your proficiency bonus. That's a speed boost, that's what that's representing, which is cool. Level 11 is Visionary. You gain expertise in 3 of your skill proficiencies of your choice. 3 expertise, that's nuts. And as a magic action, you can expend 2 blood points to touch an object and perceive emotional residues on it for 10 minutes. You get a number of questions equal to your PB to the GM, which must be answered truthfully. You can ask anything for this, though. Is the object cursed? Is it magical? Is it trapped? Did it belong to Dennis, that guy from down the street? That kind of thing. Level 15, you get Truly Majestic. You have advantage on deception and persuasion checks. In addition, when you cast a spell with your entrancement feature, a creature has disadvantage on any saving throw against it. And you also get the Majesty feature, which allows you to expend 3 blood points to cast the Sanctuary spell on yourself. When it casts on this way, it doesn't end if you make an attack roll, cast a spell, or deal damage. Wow, that's strong. It just makes you really hard to hit. And level 18 is Magnum Opus. You choose 2 of the following benefits. You get Flicker as a bonus action. You can expend 3 blood points to dance between the beats of a mortal's heart. Until the start of your next turn, you have a plus 3 bonus to your AC. Your speed is doubled and your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks, and you have advantage on attack rolls. You get Clairvoyance, so you can spend 2 blood points to cast Clairvoyance or Scrying, and the sensor cannot be perceived. Open Mind, you can use a magic action and expend a blood point to choose any number of creatures you know within 5 miles of yourself, or any number of creatures you can see within 120 feet of yourself. They can all communicate telepathically with each other, while the creatures and you are within 5 miles of each other for 8 hours. You and the targets instantly share words, images, sounds, and other sensory messages with each other through the link. The target recognizes you as the creature they are communicating with, and the effect enables creatures to understand the meaning of your words and any sensory messages you send them. And then Star Magnetism is the final one here. You can expend 3 blood points to cast Mass Suggestion. When you cast it in this way, you can target any creature you can communicate with. You don't need line of sight, and the range becomes 1 mile. That's wild. That's a lot of creatures. That seems really cool. So these are like the quick charming ones. They're kind of the a la carte vibe, maybe, from Castlevania. I really want to do an a la carte build, and I was hoping this class would let me do it. I think it probably can. It might be the Bruja, to be fair. Anyway, that seems pretty nifty. I think, yeah, I like it. The final one is the Ventru. The Ventru have elevated themselves to be the clan of kings, imposing their will on the clans and standing contemptuously against those who would defy them. After lifetimes of prudent rule, the Ventru have earned their figurative throne. Your bane is you have to choose a physical aspect or a social aspect, and if you feed on a creature that doesn't have your preferred aspect, you roll half the number of feed dice. So you could be like, I only eat people who have brown hair, that kind of thing. Voice of Authority at level 3. You can cast the Commander Suggestion spells a number of times equal to your PB, regain all uses in a short or long rest, and you get advantage on Wisdom saving throws. Level 6, you get Dare Not Falter. Your hit point maximum goes up by amount equal to your Kindred level, and goes up by 1 additional every time you level up. And if you fail a saving throw to avoid the Charmed, Frightened, or Stun condition, you can re-roll it. You must use the new roll. That's just permanent advantage against those, basically. It's not even an advantage, because if you have advantage and you still fail, you get to roll another dice. So it's a bit like Elven Accuracy against those if you already have advantage, which is nifty. Level 9 is Domineering Control. You can spend a blood point to cast Hypnotic Pattern. Cool. Creatures with an intelligence of 4 or higher have disadvantage on the save. As a magic action, you can make a persuasion check and expend 2 blood points to choose a creature you can see within 30 feet. It must make a wisdom save. On a failed save, it becomes stunned until the end of your next turn. At the end of each of its stunned creatures' turns, it can repeat the save, ending the effect on itself on a success. Weird. So it only lasts until your next turn anyway, but they can still shake it off before your turn, depending on how the turn order is. That's very odd. Persuade, you can spend a blood point to cast the Charm Monster spell, and Terrify, as a magic action, you make an Intimidation check and expend a blood point. The creature must make a Wisdom saving throw, become frightened for a minute. At the end of each of its turns, it can make a save. Level 11 is Mass Manipulation. Your ability to command stuff is good. I'm paraphrasing. You can expend 3 blood points to cast the Mass Suggestion spell. At level 15, you can expend 4 blood points to cast it as the level 7 version. At level 18, it's 5 for level 8 version. And at level 20, you can expend 6 to cast it at the level 9 version. That's pretty strong. Odd to see the ability to cast a level 9 spell on a creature which is objectively not a caster, class which is not a caster. They have no spell slots, right? So it's a little odd. Level 15 is Sanguine Fortification. You get the Draft of Endurance. When a creature within 60 feet of you drinks your vitae, you can take a reaction and expend 2 blood points to grant that creature a number of temp health equal to twice your kindred level. Did I miss something about the vitae? I'm going to control F in a second. When you take damage except fire and radiant, you can expend your reaction and 2 blood points to reduce the damage by half, or 4 blood points to reduce it to 0. That's nice. Finally, we have Lordly Power in the following benefits. When a creature within 15 feet of you targets you with an attack roll or a damaging spell, it must succeed on Wisdom saving throw, or either choose new targets or lose the attack. Or on a successful save, it has immunity for 24 hours. Cool. Creatures you can see within 60 feet of you have disadvantage on saving throws to avoid or end the charmed condition. And Summon, as a magic action, you can expend 3 blood points to urge a beast, humanoid, or undead you have touched and is on the same plane of existence as you to make a Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is compelled to come to you. It must use its movement, as much of its movement as possible, to move in your direction during its turns, taking the safest route, only stopping to eat and rest. A compelled creature repeats the save at the end of each day at dusk, ending the effect on itself on a success. You know if the compulsion ends early, you can't have more than one creature under this effect at one time, and if you use the feature again, the effect on another creature ends. When the creature appears, it is under no particular compulsion to behave in a particular way, but you can ask it to perform a service in exchange for payment, but it isn't required to do so. That's really weird. A remove curse created restoration or whisk spell can end that effect. I guess it's a ribbon feature, but it's a really weird one. I don't know, I'm here for it. Right, Vitae. Look, it's an equipment of some kind. I mean, Vitae is just blood, right? Yeah, right. So if you're putting your blood from the Kindred, with blah, 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 blah. Okay, I see. You can use your blood to put it in a vial, and then someone can drink it. If they do drink it, they get a strength boost of 2, and a speed boost of 5 feet for a week. You gain 2d6 temporary health, and you physically ignore the next year of natural aging. That's very cool. However, they have disadvantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened by the undead. I like that a lot. Okay, so you also need to keep track of a new potion type in amongst everything else. Anyway, that's the Kindred class. Oh my goodness. That was a lot of words. Like, I like talking. That was too much talking. Let's talk closing thoughts, shall we? I think the Kindred is, like, spot on in terms of flavor. I think the level of flexibility that you get, not only with the core class, but with the subclass and then the Kindred feats specifically, allow you to create any version of a vampire you might want to create, and that's always good. I stand by the fact it's probably too complicated for newer players, which isn't a bad thing in and of itself. I don't think everything should be frictionless. I think game design is at its best when there is some friction. If things aren't harder to play here and there within a largely frictionless game, as D&D is at this point, then there's nothing really to aspire to get better at the game for outside of mastering your specific classes, right? And I think it's good to have more complex options for those of us who are D&D sickos, so I'm here for that. I haven't played Vampire the Masquerade, but it feels a lot like this is transposing an entirely different system into D&D within the constraints of D&D, and I think that's a success as well. I like it a fair bit. I'm gonna do a few builds with it to see how it feels, and I will go over the feats, new equipment, and the other stuff as well in Thursday's video. So if you're looking to see what else is in the book, you can find it there. Yeah. Let me know what you think. Whether you think this is just too complicated, or if it's the right kind of complicated, and whether or not you're going to be playing one. I do want to play one. I always want to play D&D. That's not a particularly revolutionary statement. So anyway, I hope that you're well and you continue to do well. I hope that you're taking care of yourself. Please check out some of my other videos if you'd be so kind, and until the next time I see you, take care of yourself. Goodbye.